Welcome back to my channel, Celeb Buzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. Ingrid Bergman tells us about Gregory Peck's most special body part. Ingrid Bergman was born on August 29, 1915 in Stockholm, Sweden. From her early years, her life had both beauty and sadness. Her mother died when Ingrid was just 2 years old, and she lost her father when she was 12. Even with these early hard times, she grew to love acting. Her father helped her by taking lots of photos and videos of her. This early time with cameras seemed to prepare her for a life on movie screens. She went to the Royal Drama Theatre School in Stockholm, a fancy school that taught many famous Swedish actors. There, her talents quickly showed. She made her first Swedish movie in the early 1930s. By the time she acted in Intermezzo in 1936, her natural acting style and beautiful looks had already started getting attention from other countries. Her big break in Hollywood came with the American version of Intermezzo in 1939, where she acted with Leslie Howard. People loved her honest, quiet acting style, which was very different from the loud, dramatic acting that was popular then. Her European class, glowing screen presence, and special accent made her stand out from other actresses. She quickly became a wanted actress and a symbol of class, deep feelings, and smarts. One of Bergman's most famous roles came in 1942 when she acted with Humphrey Bogart in the wartime love story Casablanca. Her role as Ilsa Lund is still one of the most lasting performances in movie history. The deep feeling she brought to the role helped make the movie a timeless classic. She kept impressing both audiences and critics with her acting in For Whom the Bell Tolls in 1943 and Spellbound in 1945, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. In 1944, she won her first Academy Award for Best Actress for her role in Gaslight, where she played a woman being tricked into thinking she was losing her mind. Her ability to show mental weakness while keeping an undercurrent of strength made her status as a serious dramatic actress solid. She followed this with memorable performances in The Bells of St. Mary's in 1945 and Notorious in 1946, the latter directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Her work with Hitchcock, especially in Spellbound and Notorious, are celebrated for their intense mental complexity and have left a lasting influence on the thriller genre. Throughout the 1940s, Bergman was at the top of her career, working with some of Hollywood's best directors and actors. She stayed down to earth and very dedicated to her craft, often looking for challenging roles that let her explore deeper mental and emotional areas. In 1949, her career took a controversial turn when she fell in love with Italian director Roberto Rossellini while filming Stromboli. At the time, she was married with a child, and Rossellini was also married. Her affair and later pregnancy with Rossellini led to a scandal that shocked Hollywood and temporarily kicked her out of the American film industry. Despite being condemned in the U.S. Senate and avoided by studios, Bergman refused to say sorry for her personal choices. She stayed defiant, continuing to make movies in Europe that showed her artistic values rather than money pressures. Bergman eventually returned to Hollywood in triumph in 1956, earning a second Oscar for her role in Anastasia. Her performance reminded the world of her exceptional talent and toughness. She would go on to win her third Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in 1974 for Murder on the Orient Express. That same year, she gave a stirring portrayal of Israeli Prime Minister Golda in the TV film A Woman Called Golda, which would become her final performance, earning her both an Emmy and a Golden Globe. Ingrid Bergman, the iconic Swedish actress known for her glowing performances in classic films such as Casablanca and Notorious, began her journey through married life in 1937 when she married Dr. Peter Aron Lindström, a Swedish brain surgeon and medical researcher. At the time, Bergman was still in the early stages of her film career, and Lindström, a calm and scholarly figure, provided a stable, supportive presence as she navigated the unpredictable world of show business. Their marriage was considered traditional by the standards of the time, and they worked to build a family life amid Bergman's growing fame. Together, they welcomed a daughter, Pia Lindström, born in 1938. Pia would later go on to become a respected TV journalist and critic, but her early life was deeply shaped by the trouble that would soon surround her mother's personal life. As Bergman's fame continued to rise through the 1940s, especially in Hollywood, her marriage began to show signs of strain. The physical distance between the couple, with Ingrid often filming abroad or in California, while Lindström pursued his medical career on the East Coast, began to take its toll. During a pivotal moment in her professional and personal life, Bergman met the legendary Italian filmmaker Roberto Rossellini. Their relationship began as an artistic collaboration. Bergman had written Rossellini a letter expressing admiration for his work and a desire to act in one of his films. What followed was not only a powerful creative partnership, but also a deeply passionate and controversial love affair. Despite still being legally married to Lindstrom, Bergman became romantically involved with Rossellini, and the relationship soon attracted intense public and media scrutiny, especially in the United States. In 1950, Bergman gave birth to a son, Roberto Ingmar Rossellini, the first of 3 children she would eventually have with the Italian director. The revelation of the affair and the birth of their child sparked a major scandal in Hollywood and among American audiences, who had once idealized her as a wholesome and virtuous star. The backlash was severe. She was even denounced on the floor of the U.S. Senate as an example of moral decay in the film industry, and many theaters boycotted her films. This public shaming led to her self-imposed exile from Hollywood. Following the birth of her son, Bergman divorced Lindstrom in 1950, ending a 13-year marriage marked by both affection and growing estrangement. Shortly afterwards, she married Rossellini in a civil ceremony held in Mexico, a union that further fueled the media frenzy. Over the next several years, the couple had 2 more children, twin daughters Isabella and Isotta Ingrid Rossellini, born in 1952. Isabella Rossellini would go on to become a prominent actress and model in her own right, known for films like Blue Velvet and her long association with Lancome. The marriage between Bergman and Rossellini was both artistically fruitful and personally complex. Together, they collaborated on several films, though most were met with mixed critical and commercial reception. Ultimately, their differing professional ambitions and cultural backgrounds created irreconcilable differences, leading to their divorce in 1957. A year later, in 1958, Ingrid Bergman married for the 3rd and final time, this time to Lars Schmidt, a Swedish theatrical producer and impresario who was deeply involved in bringing Broadway-style theater to Scandinavia. Schmidt was a cultured and cosmopolitan figure who shared Bergman's Scandinavian heritage and passion for the arts. Their relationship, though at times tested by distance and the demands of their respective careers, brought Bergman a sense of familiarity and comfort. Schmidt often acted as her manager and advisor during this stage of her life, supporting her through her professional renaissance in European and American cinema. Their marriage endured for 17 years until they amicably divorced in 1975. Despite the separation, they remained close friends, and Schmidt continued to be a trusted figure in Bergman's life until her death in 1982. Throughout her life, Ingrid Bergman's personal relationships were as complex and compelling as the characters she portrayed on screen. Her marriages reflected her constant search for love, stability, and creative fulfillment, even amid the challenges of fame and public scrutiny. In the later pages of her personal memoir, Ingrid Bergman offered a moment of vulnerable candor that both surprised and captivated readers, a reflection on her time working with Gregory Peck, the dashing, deeply soulful actor whose presence had long enchanted audiences. While their on-screen chemistry in Spellbound had already become legendary, Bergman took her recollection a step further by sharing a private, almost reverent memory of what she called Gregory Peck's most treasured body part. To the public, Peck was the epitome of the tall, noble leading man, broad-shouldered, deep-voiced, his dark eyes full of unspoken poetry. But for Bergman, there was something more, something intimate, something she alone had noticed behind the camera's lens. She wrote, not with frivolity, but with admiration and a kind of quiet awe. It wasn't his voice, though that was like velvet thunder. She wrote, and it wasn't his face, though it was carved with the restraint of a Roman statue. No, it was his hands. Yes, his hands. She described them as large, elegant, and expressive, capable of communicating entire scenes without a word spoken. When Gregory touched a prop, a cigarette, a letter, a lock of my hair for the sake of a scene, it wasn't acting, it was something sacred, like a prayer. His hands didn't just perform, they conveyed entire emotional landscapes. So Bergman revealed, I used to watch them when the camera wasn't on me, mesmerized. They were both strong and gentle, like they could cradle a fragile heart or strike down injustice in a courtroom. There were moments, she wrote, when his hands told the story more powerfully than the script. In one particular scene from Spellbound, when Peck's character, plagued by amnesia and fear, reaches out uncertainly to Bergman's character, it wasn't the dialogue that moved her most, but the tremble of his fingers, the tension in his knuckles, the hesitation in his touch. He carried the entire emotional weight of that scene in the way his thumb grazed my cheek, she wrote. And I never forgot it. For Bergman, those hands came to represent more than just physical tools of performance. They became symbolic of the man himself, his restraint, his dignity, his quiet inner turbulence, and his overwhelming compassion. They were the only part of him that betrayed his inner storms, she wrote. Everything else remained controlled, measured, but his hands, they told the truth. The passage wasn't just a revelation of admiration. It was a rare glimpse into the deep emotional undercurrents that defined one of Hollywood's most iconic screen pairings. It hinted, perhaps, at a fleeting affection that dared not fully blossom beyond the bounds of professionalism and decorum. Maybe I never told him, Bergman concluded wistfully, but those hands, those magnificent hands, have stayed with me far longer than any kiss. In sharing such a poignant reflection, Ingrid Bergman didn't merely humanize a silver screen legend. She illuminated how deeply artists could connect in ways invisible to the audience, and in doing so, she granted readers a glimpse into the soulful reverence she held for Gregory Peck, not only as an actor, but as a man whose finest performance in her eyes was quietly etched in the movement of his hands. During the theatrical run of The Constant Wife in London, Ingrid Bergman, then in her late 50s, noticed a troubling physical symptom, a firm, unrelenting lump beneath her left breast. Alarmed, yet maintaining her composure and professionalism, she sought medical advice and underwent a surgical procedure on June 15, 1974, at a private clinic in London. The procedure confirmed what she had feared. The lump was malignant. This marked the beginning of a prolonged and courageous battle with breast cancer. Despite the seriousness of her diagnosis, Bergman refused to retreat from her demanding career or the stage she loved. Her stoic approach and refusal to publicly dwell on her illness demonstrated her lifelong commitment to work and grace under pressure. While working on Autumn Sonata in 1978, a role that would earn her an Academy Award nomination and widespread critical acclaim, Bergman once again discovered a lump. With quiet determination, she interrupted filming to fly back to London for another surgery. The emotional and physical toll was significant, but she pressed on. Her performance in Autumn Sonata, directed by Ingmar Bergman, no relation, was widely seen as one of her finest, filled with raw emotional depth that many later speculated drew from her own personal struggle. Shortly after her second surgery, and still enduring the aftermath of her treatments, she began rehearsals for the British television play Waters of the Moon, 1978. Despite her declining health, she poured herself into her craft, unwilling to let illness define her. Her strength in the face of terminal disease was perhaps most profoundly exhibited when, in 1981, she agreed to portray Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir in the television miniseries A Woman Called Golda. Knowing her health was rapidly failing, Bergman committed to the role with the same intensity and grace that had defined her career. Filming was grueling, as she had to manage the intense physical demands of the role while undergoing chemotherapy. Her body had begun to deteriorate rapidly. The cancer had metastasized to her spine, resulting in the collapse of her 12th vertebra. One lung had ceased to function entirely, and the other was barely operational, with only a small portion of her left lung still intact. Still, she completed filming, astonishing her co-workers and viewers with her resilience and power. After finishing the project, which would posthumously win her a Primetime Emmy Award, Bergman retired to her apartment in Sheen Gardens, a picturesque neighborhood in London. There she spent her final months, mostly indoors, confined by her illness and avoiding the attention of the public and the media. Paparazzi frequently camped outside, hoping to catch a final glimpse of the legendary actress, but she declined to go near the front window. She was weary, fragile, and fiercely private, choosing to spend her last days in quiet dignity rather than in the spotlight that had followed her for decades. Ingrid Bergman passed away in London at the stroke of midnight on August 29, 1982, her 67th birthday. She died peacefully, surrounded by a small group of loved ones, including her ex-husband, Swedish theatrical producer Lars Schmidt, and 3 close companions who had gathered to share a final toast to her life earlier that evening. At her bedside was a copy of The Little Prince, a beloved novella by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. It was open to a page near the end, perhaps reflecting the philosophical calm with which she met death. The story's themes of love, loss, and the invisible bonds between people seem to mirror Bergman's own journey through life and legacy. A public memorial service was held several weeks later in October at the historic St. Martin in the Fields Church in London. The event drew 1,200 mourners and was attended by a constellation of friends, family, admirers, and industry colleagues. Her children from her marriage to Roberto Rossellini, the Rossellinis, were present, as were extended family members who had flown in from Sweden. Fellow actors and collaborators such as Liv Ullmann, Sir John Gielgud, Dame Wendy Hiller, the renowned opera singer Birgit Nilsson, and actor Jose Acklin joined the congregation in paying tribute. So Jose Acklin joined the congregation in paying tribute. The service featured Shakespearean readings and moving musical selections, including This Old Man, which Bergman had performed in the Inn of the Six Happiness, and The Timeless As Time Goes By from Casablanca, one of the films that had cemented her place in cinematic history. Among the mourners was her grandson, Justin Daly, who remembered the chaotic and emotional atmosphere. Journalists and photographers swarmed the area, their flashes going off incessantly. At one point, Daly recalled a camera accidentally struck him on the head in the frenzy. That surreal moment drove home the realization that his grandmother was not merely a beloved family member. She was a global icon, cherished far beyond the boundaries of personal intimacy. In the middle of all this chaos, he later said, I could sense that she wasn't just my grandmother. She belonged to everyone else. She belonged to the world. Following the service, Ingrid Bergman was cremated in a private ceremony attended by only her closest relatives and 5 trusted friends at Kensal Green Cemetery in London. Respecting her wishes, the ceremony was intimate and understated. Most of her ashes were transported to Sweden and scattered in the waters surrounding the small island of Danhalmomen, near the fishing village of Fjällbacka on Sweden's west coast. This location held deep personal significance for Bergman, as it had been her cherished summer retreat for more than 2 decades, from 1958 until the final years of her life. There she had found peace and serenity away from the scrutiny of Hollywood and the burdens of fame.